Hi, it's Mick. This is the video that goes with session number 7 on the Boomer series for yoga, and it's broadly yoga for people that don't do yoga. And in this final session we're looking to help people actually develop their own personal home yoga practice. So it's building on everything we've done to date. And I often talk about yoga for me is trying to bring together three things. It's trying to develop a calm heart, a clear head and a comfortable body, and that's all underpinned by a breath flow that is easy. And in the program we've covered a range of things. We've looked at breath, we've looked at the notion of how the different buses come through us, the emotional buses, the logical buses and the behavioural buses. We've looked at this idea that the body can be seen as a series of 7 different connecting positions, and that we're trying to get stability and mobility in those. We've looked at things about the hip, we've looked at the shoulder, we've looked at the spine, we've looked at how the body works across those 7 connection points, and we also looked at this idea of gravity in relation to the energy that flows through us. And this final session is about trying to pull that all together to help people actually develop their own personal home practice. So if we're looking to get a comfortable body, I guess the question is, so what is it that makes the body uncomfortable, and how does yoga help to address that? And in the previous video we looked at this notion of that gravity is running through us and acting upon us. And one way to understand what gravity does to us is by looking at astronauts when they go into space and they're free of that control of gravity. Their bones deteriorate, their muscles weaken, and interestingly the fluid in their body changes. It moves from being at the lower part of the body and comes to the upper part of the body, and that's why when astronauts come back home they have swollen faces. So our body is constantly dealing with gravity, and what we're looking for is a body where these 7 connection points are both mobile and stable, and we're able to move freely so that gravity doesn't impact upon us and cause us pain. And it's important to understand this notion of gravity and energy. So if I pick my arm up, what I'm actually doing is I'm converting muscle power to go against gravity. So I'm doing anti-gravity, so I'm going against gravity, and that arm now holds what's called kinetic energy within it. And it comes down and it can hit the floor, and that's the transfer of energy back. So, and a simple example of this idea of kinetic energy is when we go on the plane and we lift the case up and we put it in the overhead locker, what we're doing is we're actually giving that case energy, and when it comes down and we put it on the floor, we're returning energy down. And we can see that when if we take the case out and we don't catch it properly and it falls to the floor or falls to someone's head, we're seeing a transfer of energy. And you can see this flow of energy, and you've probably all seen the Newton's cradle. I call them Newton's balls, which is where you have a series of silver balls and they go backwards and forwards, and that's effectively the transfer of kinetic energy. And that's no different to when we're walking on the ground. What we're doing is we are transferring energy to the ground from gravity. It's coming through us. And if you were to take those Newton's cradle and turn it on its side and you see them going up and down, that's us when we're walking. I know that as a walker and a hiker, the moment I put my rucksack on and I'm hiking, if there's any part of my body that's weak, I know it really fast. If you're carrying the shopping, if there's any part of the body that's weak, that's the point it pops. That's the point you can feel it. It's like a fuse system in the home. Under load, then you know where the problem areas are. And so what yoga is trying to do is to go through that loading process and that stressing process, but in a safe, controlled way. So we go into postures to go, okay, what does that feel like now? And it's a phrase I use a lot. We don't use our body to get into the yoga poses, we use the poses to get into our body. And to go back to the start point when I said yoga is about a calm heart, a clear head and a comfortable body, what we're trying to do is to get that comfortable body, and a daily yoga practice is what helps us to do that, is to be aware. And in terms of our daily yoga practice, there's many reasons why we do it, but five key reasons for me. The first thing is a lovely phrase that motion is the lotion. And if you look at a dog or a cat or an animal, the first thing they do when they wake is they stretch, right? And what they're doing is they're opening the body, and we need to move. And that's the really critical thing why the yoga practice has to be daily. It can't be once a week. The second thing is we want this range of motion, because if we need that full rotation, we need that full lift. If we don't, as we age, that gets restricted and gets tighter and tighter and tighter until we lose that ability to move. this movement is also important in terms of something called muscle memory. So the reason we do forward fold, for example, in yoga, if we do a forward fold every day, that you think, well, why am I doing this? But we do it because the day when we have to come and we have to bend over in emergency to pick up our keys, to pick up a child, if the body's not used to doing that, if there's no memory within the system, that's when we put our back out. And muscle memory is an important part of that process of stability and mobility. Also within the yoga practice, we're trying to build strength. We're trying to build strength and stamina. So some of the yoga postures are about holding a position. They are using the anti-gravity to build muscle. But it's about every day just doing a little bit of work to build some strength up. Which comes to the last point in terms of it has to be every day, I think. I don't think it is something you do once a week. But a small amount every day is far more significant than a large impact occasionally. And what we'll do within this yoga practice is we'll start off with a 5 minutes program that you can do, and then you build up to 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes until you get to the point where maybe 15 minutes every day you have a sequence that you do that is actually starting to build that strength and mobility. We'll cover the sequence in more depth in the session, but broadly we go through 12 postures. The first posture is mountain pose, and that's a very simple standing exercise where we're trying to get the sense of alignment within the body to make sure our feet are standing properly on those 7 key points that we've talked about, and that gravity is flowing through the body effectively. We then move into a forward fold, and that's a flexion at the hips that we've talked about, and we've done all this before, and that's starting to open the body out. We then go into puppy dog pose, which although it looks incredibly simple, but actually it's quite significant because we're working on the knees, we're working on the hips, we're working on the arms, we're doing some stability in terms of the strength. So all of a sudden we're starting to really work the body. We then go into what's called cat-cow, and cat-cow is movement of the spine with the breath. And it's a repeated mechanism by breathing in and out for the 5-second count. We're actually starting to roll the spine backwards and forwards and get some fluidity with it. Into the classic down dog, which uses the entire body, right? So it's both strength and stability and mobility across the whole body, and we hold that for a period. We go into warrior 1, warrior 2, warrior 3, warrior 4, and warrior 5, which is basically a series of flow mechanisms with the body. And so we're starting to move all the joints that we can, all the connective points in the body, we're starting to make use of. We go into triangle, which gives us a rotation of the spine while we're still in the warrior pose. And finally into tree pose, which is a wonderful way of looking at balance. And then we go back to the position number 1 and repeat that for the other side of the body. And that's the 12-step program we'll be going through for the personal yoga practice. And so I hope that makes sense, and I look forward to seeing you.